Hello, I'm Sherry Sturman, Director of Crayola Education, and I'm excited that Harper Kids and Crayola are collaborating on the Read Along, Draw Along series that helps children enjoy great stories and the illustrations that bring them to life. So get cozy, grab some drawing supplies, and get ready for an interactive story session. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guests, author Jennifer Byrne and illustrator Lorraine Nam, who collaborated on Look Up With Me. This book is a story about young Neil deGrasse Tyson as he discovers the wonders of space, the thrill of science, and the joy of sharing information about our universe. This book helps us understand his journey, becoming a world-renowned astrophysicist and a thought leader that he is today. Jennifer, please tell us about the research and the writing process that prepared you to write Neil's story. How did you learn about his childhood, his dog walking job, really all of his careers? And how did you figure out his dreams and his beliefs?
I was really fortunate because Neil is one of those people who is always telling everybody about his beliefs in his childhood and in his books and his blogs and on TV and his performances as he travels around the country and his webcasts. So there's a lot of Neil out there, which is great for an author. I did get to interview him through emails. I was able to send him questions, which he answered very nicely. A lot of them were about his childhood. So it was great to have such an accessible person to write about.
And Lorraine, your art is both structural and playful. Tell our viewers what it means to be a paper illustrator. How did you get started with this art making process of cutting and folding and gluing together scenes?
I think I've always just loved drawing. When I was younger, I used to love drawing pictures, and I would draw pictures of my family, my friends. And then one day, I went to the library and I found this book on origami. And I loved everything about it. I loved that you could just fold a piece of paper, any scrap piece of paper, and make it into something new. Years later, that's when I had the idea that instead of drawing on paper, that maybe I can make pictures by making things out of paper and creating paper sets.
This book has so many fun scenes, like when young Neil visits the planetarium. What are some of your favorite scenes that you created for this story?
One of my favorite scenes is when Neil is sitting at his desk writing a magazine column, and all of the pages are floating around him, and it looks like a gust of wind came through. That was so much fun to make because all of those pieces of paper, you can't see it, but they're actually hung up by wire. So they look like they're in motion, but it's very much like a still photograph of it. So when I'm building my miniature sets, I like to think about just different shapes that it could be. What you see behind me is actually the actual artwork that I created for the book. And something like a building, it's just a box.
Could you tell us how you envision a scene, how it starts before you cut and fold and glue? How do you think about where it's going?
Like any picture, it starts off with a really rough drawing, actually. So it's just pencil on paper, just figuring out where the character is and all the different objects that are around it. But then when I'm actually cutting and folding and gluing, I'm making it look exactly like my drawing. And then I can play around with perspective. Like if I want something to be further back, then I can actually physically move it back instead of redrawing it. And sometimes things change, and I can move things around and just take a new photograph.
Love that description of the three-dimensional pieces and how they move in real time. That's fantastic. So Jennifer, tell us about the introduction in the book. Most grown-ups have forgotten what it was like to be a kid. I'm a full grown-up, but I still feel like a kid. He really points out that scientists never lose their curiosity and their sense of wonder, and that keeps them forever young. Why is that such an important message that he focused on? In fact, his entire introduction is about staying curious. Tell us about that.
Curiosity it's like the door to all knowledge. Without curiosity, there'd be no science, there'd be no culture, there'd be no arts, there'd be no medicine, there'd be no inventions. So curiosity is like our superpower.
Love that. Curiosity is our superpower. So in addition to that theme, there are so many other key messages that you've included in this story. What are some of your favorite key messages in this book that you really want readers to focus on?
I think there's kind of one key message that goes throughout the whole thing, which is that our universe is just a fascinating and amazing place. And I guess that's important to me because I hope that it'll inspire them to explore this place that's our home. It's magnificent, it's mysterious, and it's where we all live, and it's what we're all made of.
What a lovely segue to reading the story. Jennifer, would you please read Look Up With Me?
Look Up With Me, Neil deGrasse Tyson, A Life Among the Stars. On an autumn afternoon in 1958, in the city of New York, on the third planet out from the sun, in the Milky Way galaxy, a little baby boy was born. Neil deGrasse Tyson opened his eyes, and there it was, the universe, just waiting to be discovered. At first, Neil's world was small, his building blocks and little books, his yo-yos and gyroscopes. During the days, Neil went to school, to the park, and to museums. At night, he looked out the window of his apartment building and saw other buildings, streets and streetlights, and here and there, small bits of sky. Until one day, Neil went to New York City's famous Hayden Planetarium. As he sat beneath the high arc of the theater, out went the lights, and shazam, wowza. Neil's mind was launched into outer space. In a single instant, his world expanded 100 times, 1,000 times, even more. Projected on the huge dome above his head was the night sky with countless thousands of stars, a gigantic, spectacular, beautiful cosmos Neil had never knew existed. And in that moment, his life was changed forever. Neil started reading everything he could about planets, moons, and stars. He wondered where comets come from, what makes galaxies spin, and how big is outer space. He learned the word astrophysicist, the kind of scientist who studies all those things, the kind of scientist he wanted to become one day. Neil pasted glow-in-the-dark stars all over his ceiling in the shapes of the constellations. At night, with the lights out, it felt as though his bed were floating in the huge magnificence of space. After exploring the skies with binoculars and a small telescope, Neil was determined to get a bigger, more powerful telescope to bring the heavens even closer to his eyes, and he figured out just how to do it. Dogs. For 2 entire years after school, Neil walked neighborhood dogs, big ones, small ones, fluffy ones, scruffy ones. At 50 cents a walk, he worked hard and finally got his telescope. Night after night, Neil carried his heavy telescope up to the roof of his building. Nervous neighbors called the police and reported a tall burglar with a dangerous weapon. When the officers arrived, Neil explained it was a telescope and showed them the beauty of his favorite planet, Saturn, magnified 100 times, its golden glow, its icy rings, and many moons. So Although they arrived with fear and suspicion, they left with awe and wonder. Because of his passion for astronomy, Neil won a scholarship for a voyage across the Atlantic Ocean to view a total solar eclipse. Surrounded by stargazers, researchers, and scientists, Neil was beginning to find his people, his future. Then, at only 15, Neil was invited to give his first astronomy lecture. He was paid $50, which equaled 100 dog walks, and made him realize he could actually make a living by talking about the universe he loved so much. In college and graduate school, Neil's mind traveled farther than it ever had before, flying into outer space with runaway stars, diving into the cores of black holes, and leaping from galaxy to galaxy. And when Neil wasn't being his cosmic self, he enjoyed being his dancing self, his wrestling self, his picture-taking self, or most of all, his laughing self. And when you see him now today, he still loves laughing. When Neil graduated, he made sharing the wonders of the cosmos his world as a teacher, a researcher, a writer. This is a spread that we talked about before. He wrote a magazine column in the made-up character of Merlin, a 5 billion-year-old visitor from the Andromeda galaxy who answered people's questions about astronomy and the cosmos. And here he is with papers flying and writing his column. Then Neil got what just might be the coolest job on Earth. He became the director of the Hayden Planetarium, in the very place that expanded Neil's world so many years before. It became his turn to expand ours. Today, in his dazzling sky shows, Neil takes us to the edges of the universe, inside the center of stars, and back to the beginning of time. Not only does Neil bring us the stars in the sky, but through his books and tours, TV and radio shows, he has become a star himself right here on Earth, a superstar of science, shining his bright light on the secrets of the universe. Neil believes everyone should have their mind blown at least once a day, and he does his best to make sure it happens. This spread is full of great little mind blowers from Neil. I'll read you a couple. There are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches in all the world. Outer space is completely silent. Because there's no air there, it has nothing for sound to travel through. Someone could shout right in your ear and you wouldn't hear a thing. Shooting stars are really meteors entering the Earth's atmosphere, and most of them are smaller than a blueberry, which is kind of remarkable when you think of a shooting star. The wonders of the universe are always with Neil, day and night. At the beach, Neil thinks about the 8 minutes and 20 seconds that sunbeams take, traveling through space at the speed of light to land on his nose and toes to warm his earthly body. When Neil sees stars through his window at night, he thinks about how their light took thousands of years to get here, and that there's newborn stars whose light won't get to Earth for 1,000 years or more into the future, invisible stars for now. Then he closes his eyes and goes to sleep in his beloved cosmos. As much as Neil loves the amazing facts of the universe, he is also fascinated by the mysteries and the unknowns, the just beginning to be knowns and the barely knowns. The mysteries, the mysterious pull of invisible dark matter, the push of dark energy expanding our universe ever further, ever faster, and wormholes, the faster than light passageways through space and time, all the mind-blowing secrets that will be explored by the next generation of scientists and the next, perhaps by you. One simple wish Neil has for the future is that all of us, every person on Earth, go outside at night and look up, look up, look up at the moon, stars, and planets, and think about the fact that we are all made of the very same stuff they are, of the stardust atoms that of long ago exploded stars, and that we're all part of the very same thing, this amazing, beautiful, spectacular, mind-blowing universe that is our home, that is our world, that is us. And that's the end of the story, but there's a little more fun stuff in the back here. There's a note from me to you about when I started writing and when I wrote a letter to Neil and the response. It's kind of interesting. And then there's a glossary here, which is a description of a lot of the terms and ideas, and how to have more Neil deGrasse Tyson in your life and how to have more universe in your life. And that's a book.
This story talks about how childhood interests can become lifelong passions. And it tells us about one individual who carved out so many different career paths, as Neil was a teacher, a researcher, a writer, a planetarium director, radio and TV spokesperson. Throughout, his curiosity made his inner star shine. Tell us about when you read the story to children. Does it help them envision a bright new future for themselves?
I think it gives them a sense that what they're interested in now, what they're passionate about, what fascinates them, that will just lead them into their future step by step by step as they follow their passions, just the way it did for Neil.
And it shows the many possibilities, which is so important. Tell us about some of the pivotal scenes that you described in the story, how a single day can create a change or have a lasting impact. Neil's life story really unfolds as a series of important events. What does this book say to teachers, students, and parents about the power of any one day to change a child?
You never know what's going to light that spark of curiosity. I mean, it could happen any day, any time. For Neil, it happened in the planetarium. For Einstein, it happened when he was looking at a compass. It could happen at a zoo. It could happen at a museum. It could happen looking at a painting. It could happen listening to a piece of music. The thought behind that, the message behind that is just expose kids to all kinds of stuff. At some point, you never know when, that spark of curiosity will happen and something life-changing could happen.
Lorraine, your illustrations really bring this story to life, and we're excited to see how you create them. Please demonstrate your paper illustration art technique so our viewers can work alongside you and create this type of folded and cut paper art. Now, a message for our viewers: as you're watching Lorraine create, be thinking about what you're going to make, a character or a building.
So I think I'm gonna make a young Neil. So Neil when he was a kid. And I have all these great color construction paper, but I don't have one that represents his skin tone. So I think I'm gonna use the Colors of the World marker series. So I'm just gonna grab this and just using the side, making broad strokes. So I'm making my own colored paper. So now we have that. And then for Neil's outfit, let's take a look at him here. I like him in a yellow shirt. So I chose that because I thought it was like a star since he's a star. So here's the yellow construction paper. And then for his shorts, I don't have that shade of brown either. So let me just make that color. And I'm going to choose a different marker. And again, just using broad strokes, I'm just making a different color paper. So on one piece of paper, you can make all these different colors. So when we look at Neil's head, heads are round. So let me grab my scissors. And I'm just going to cut this down so it's easier to work with. And I'm just going to go straight for it. I'm just going to start cutting.
I love that you're demonstrating that freestyle cutting. We don't have to like trace a circle or have firm lines. That's great for our viewers to see.
And then I want to make his neck. So a neck is super simple, just like a rectangle piece of paper. So I think that's pretty good. And I always keep the scraps too, because you never know if you need extra. You need some arms. So instead of cutting his hands, because they're kind of delicate, and it's kind of hard to cut in one go, I'm just gonna cut it like that. So it kind of looks like a circle at the end of a rectangle. And I'm gonna make two. I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna cut off a little triangle piece. So it kind of looks like a hand. And you can go in and if you want, just, I kind of call it like fringe. Just rectangle.
Just to get a little air between the fingers.
Fingers, yeah. Just so like, you know, if you wanted to make a peace sign, you could just fold his fingers over. So I have one, and hands are mirror images. So I'm gonna have his thumb on that side and cut a little piece. I think he needs a shirt. So now we have the hands, the head, the neck, and then let's start putting the details. So I'm just gonna take a marker and draw his hair first. So his hair is kind of like this arch, and another one. And then his ear, and then I'm just gonna fill this in. And then for his face, I'm just gonna grab a pen. And draw his eyebrows, his nose, and that great smile. And so we have Neil. So I think what we're missing here are the sleeves to his shirt. So I'm just gonna cut off a small piece so it's easier. And it's a similar shape as the shirt, just smaller. And I'm gonna cut out two of them. And they don't have to be perfect, as long as you have the shape. And then let's try the shorts. So here we have the shorts. And then I'm just gonna cut a triangle so that they're shorts and not a skirt. And you don't have to worry about the white on top because that's where we're gonna apply the glue. So you don't have to see that. So another thing I want to do is cut off a strip of paper. And this is something you're not going to see. So it could be any scrap piece of paper, as long as it's a little bit long. And then I'm going to put glue all along the whole thing and start folding. So I'm going to fold like a small fold like that. And I'm just going to keep on going, rolling and folding until I get to the end. So if you see how I made Neil in the book, his head is sticking out a little bit further. So I'm going to do the same thing. And now that we have all the pieces, it's like a puzzle. All we have to do is start gluing. So I'm going to start with his neck and just glue the ends. Just a little bit. And stick his shirt on. And then, let's see. I'm gonna glue this on. Like that. And put more glue on there. And what's great about this is you can have his head looking up like that, or maybe he's looking down at his shoes or book. I think I'm gonna have him looking up, since that's the title of the book, Look Up With Me. And then I'm just gonna glue his sleeves on. And his arms can have just the same amount of personality as his head. Which is the fun part of illustrating with paper. So he could have his arms down like that, or maybe he's excited and they're up in the air, or maybe he's thinking and you can fold his arm like that and he's holding his chin. I kind of like that, so let me color in the other side of his arm. And then you just glue here. And now it looks like he's thinking. And then we have his shorts. Like I said, you can apply it just on the white top because you're not going to see it. And then you can glue him on there. A little paper Neil. And then you get lots of great dimension with the arm and the head.
While Lorraine and kids of all ages are busy working on their art, I want to mention to parents and educators that you can sign up to receive a free monthly newsletter filled with resources from Crayola Education. Make learning colorful and fun with ideas delivered right to your email box. After the session, you'll have plenty of time to finish your artwork and share it in the comment section of this video. When the young artists finish their work, We recommend that their teachers and parents discuss what the kids have created. Listen to the children, hear what their ideas are, learn what makes them curious. It'd be wonderful if you could help our viewers create a setting. Show us how you create that kind of scene.
So I think I'm going to pull out this great shade of blue. And to make a building, because Neil lives in New York and there's a whole bunch of skyscrapers, I am just going to start covering this Crayola box. So I'm lining up to the edge and I'm folding on the corner where there's a corner on the box. And then just folding it like that. And I'm going all the way around. So I'm just making my marks so I know where to fold. And then folding all along the edge. And I have a little bit of extra, so I'm just gonna cut off some there. So I'm just gonna start drawing some windows. I'm gonna use this metallic marker because I love the shine that this gets. And it kind of reminds me of stars. So that's the roof top line. And then just a bunch of rectangles for windows. And I'm just drawing some more lines so that they look like windows. So add a door. And then what we're going to do is all along the edge here, we're going to apply some glue. Make sure we have enough. Okay. Take our box of crayons and just wrap it around. And we have our building.
Perfect.
And with all these other boxes, you can make even more buildings. You can make it, you can cut it so it's a little bit shorter, and they're all different heights. Maybe Neil sitting on the top.
You into the house, into the building.
This is exactly how I do my illustrations. I just build it like this and then take a photograph.
Thank you, Lorraine, for showing us all of these tips and techniques. Your art takes us from home to outer space. What last advice would you like to share with our participants as they practice your paper cutting techniques and creating illustrations from folded paper?
You can create these illustrations out of anything. So it could be scrap pieces of paper. Maybe it's a birthday card that you received and it came with an envelope. You can reuse that envelope and cut it into it and make something completely new.
Jennifer, this story has really helped us think about all sorts of possibilities as we keep our sense of wonder alive. What last bit of advice would you like to share with our listeners?
Always stay curious. And once you're curious, like everything else will just follow naturally.
We'd love to thank Jennifer and Lorraine for inspiring us today. And we also want to thank Harper Kids for this wonderful collaboration and for publishing this great book. We're forever grateful to Neil for his inspirational story and the leadership that he continues to provide to us all. And a special thanks for all of you who've joined us in the program today.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me in paper crafting and creating this illustration. I had so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it and keep crafting.
Bye-bye, fellow travelers on our planet Earth. Always stay curious and see where it takes you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.